Well, welcome to chapel. Hope you had a restful weekend. My family and I, part of my family and I were up in North Andover this weekend, hiking through a property reserve that we hadn't been to before. And just as we were headed back to our car, ran into a couple folks who graduated from Gordon last year who were so beaming with excitement to see me. It wasn't me they were excited to see, but it was the engagement ring that she was wearing. She was excited to show off, So, fortunately, I could remember one of two names, but that 50% is not bad, is it, Coach? Thank you, both of you, for that affirmation I needed. Well, we're continuing to talk about the way of wisdom. And today's topic is this. The subject is, it's not what you know. Wisdom isn't what you know. Knowledge is a part of it, but it's not really the heart of it. Do you know this? If we were to read in 1 Kings chapter 4, it would tell us how many proverbs Solomon could recite. Does anyone know how many proverbs Solomon could? This is like an Old Testament quiz, isn't it? Any guesses? 3,000 proverbs. He knew he could speak 3,000 proverbs. And it also throws in, kind of as a song, or as a side note, that he had his songs numbered 1,005. So 3,000 proverbs, he could sing or authored 1,000 plus psalms or hymns. Pretty amazing. But we know that Solomon, even though he knew that, he had all those proverbs, he still went astray. He wandered off. And it was a result of his behavior that in the generation following him, the kingdom was divided, right? There's treachery in his own household, and the kingdom that he was entrusted with broke apart. He went astray. He moved far afield, because it's not so much what you know. Senator Kerry said this, never confuse wisdom and knowledge. One of them helps you make a living, and the other helps you make a life. Two different things. It's not what you know. Let's play a little game here. I'm going to throw up some popular proverbs, not from the book of Scripture, but kind of cultural proverbs. And I want to see, first of all, if you can fill in the blanks a little bit, or guess the second half, and then note something about their contradictory character. Okay, so here's the first clue. Look what might come next. Look out. No, that's not a really good proverb. Although it could come in handy some moments. Look before you leap. Thank you. Someone had it down here. Right. But on the other hand, he who hesitates is lost. Right. So, which of these do we follow? Both at the same time. Yes. Here we go. How about this one? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah, and of course, yeah. Well, okay. Never put off till tomorrow what you can do today, and until you come to it, right? How many of you sound like you're familiar with most of these little proverbs, right? You know them, but do they give you wisdom? Just knowing these things, do they make you wise? Here, let's try a couple others. Yes, someone's quick back there. And, right. Let's, right. You guys are doing pretty good, at least some of you. The others are kind of abysmally poor. I don't know if it's that you're just not saying it or you don't know these things. How about this? Opposite? That's right. Wow, that was spoken with some conviction. Does that grow out of dating experiences? Locked together, yeah. Good job. Okay. But the point is what? What you know, doesn't matter how many of these little proverbs you might know, they don't add up to wisdom. Wisdom resides in knowing when to apply what you know. In what circumstances do you refer to these type of proverbs? Do you take your lead from a proverb like this? It can be that elusive kind of thing, right? Knowing the right way to respond to a concrete situation within the moment. One of my favorite sayings about the difference between wisdom and knowledge is this, is that knowledge is having something to say, and wisdom is knowing not to say it. Or it can be, the difference between telling your friend to be quiet or to say, your lips are lovely when they're closed. You try that sometime. Wisdom is not what you know, rather it's what you love. Wisdom, the better part of it, is comprised of what we love. Right? We just learned this verse. Wisdom says, I love those who love me, and those who seek me find me. We only seek what we love, and we find what we seek. Wisdom is about what we love. But how do we know the difference? In the passage that Bennett Shakes read for us, it says this in chapter 8 of Proverbs. Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights along the way where the paths meet, she takes her stand. And beside the city gates at the entrance, she cries out. She raises her voice to give prudence to the simple. Wisdom cries out, makes her voice known for us if we will hear it. But we will only hear it if we love it. Those who have ears to hear first have hearts that love. Think about it. Have you ever been able to pick out your own name spoken across a crowded mall, or to hear the voice of someone you love and pick that out of a noisy room? We hear the things that we love. If you flip, and Matt, let me have you do this. Open up to Proverbs chapter 9. In the next chapter over, I want you to compare some things. There's a really interesting contrast here, or parallel. In chapter 9 of Proverbs, wisdom begins speaking. In the first few verses of chapter 9, first of all, it's wisdom who says this. It says, wisdom has built her house, and she has hewn it from 7 pillars. She has prepared her meat and mixed her wine. She's also set her table. And she has sent out her maids, and she calls from the highest points of the city, all you who are simple, come here. She says to those who lack judgment, come and eat my food and drink my wine that I've mixed. Leave your simple ways, and I will give you life. Walk in the way of understanding. Leave your simple ways, and you will live. Walk in the ways of understanding. There she is out in public. Wisdom saying, listen. If you want me, just listen. I'm here. I've prepared a place for you. Come in, receive what you need. It'll lead to life. But look down at the bottom of this chapter, starting at verse 13. Here's the parallel and also the contrast. The woman, folly, is loud. She's undisciplined, and without knowledge, she sits at the door of her house on a seat at the highest point of the city, and she calls out to those who pass by and those who go straight on their way. She says, let all who are simple come in here. She says to those who lack judgment, stolen water is sweet, and food eaten in secret is delicious. But little do they know that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depth of the grave. Look at the contrast, but incredible similarity. Let's look for just a moment at some of the similarities here. They both speak in public where everyone can hear. They both raise their voices. They target the simple, but speak to everyone. They grant hospitality. They offer advice. You might notice that the lady Folly here is even quoting a proverb. She's quoting a bit of wisdom, right? But she uses it in a way that deceives. They both make promises, But one voice leads to life. One voice leads to death. So our question is this. Oops, there we go. What do you choose to listen to? Of all the voices, of all the messages, of all the little things that would attract your attention, ask for your attention, ask for your obedience, little voices that would suggest pathways for you to take, things to do, how to use your time, what to pay attention to. Out of all of those things, what do you choose to listen to? And the first challenge is learning to accept that we have a choice. We do have a choice. There are two big obstacles that some of us wrestle with. And one is not really believing that we're free to choose. It's easier to think that family history or genetics or neurochemistry or family background or that you're too pretty or that you're not pretty enough or that you're uncoordinated or you're not very smart or whatever it is. We allow those things to say, well, those set conditions in my life, that doesn't really make it free for me to choose. I just like what I like. I'm just drawn to the things that I'm drawn to. It's just who I am. It doesn't matter whether it leads to life or to death. It's just how I'm bent. It's just what I like. Well, there are some factors in our life, biological, psychological, and historical, that shape us and condition us. They become the conditions and the constraints within which we live, but our living is the active embrace of choosing. And today we're talking about choosing what you will listen to. You can choose. Not only that, but the choices we make really matter. I can't tell you how many times over and over I've heard this in my office. Students come to me and they talk about an issue they're dealing with. It might be a problem with a roommate, difficulties understanding their faith, a sense that God's far away, or that they just don't care anymore and are wondering why that is the case. And I learn a little bit more about what they've been up to, what they've been doing, choices they've made, things they've given themselves to, what they habitually give their attention to day after day, week in and week out. And I say, and they'll inevitably come around to one decision that they can see was a really poor one, a really stupid one. And I'll say, how did you feel about that? How do you feel about that decision? And almost without fail, they say, well, I don't have any regrets. You know, like it was my choice, I did it. It made me who I am. I don't have any regrets. And that statement can be made if you're not on your way anywhere. If you're not on your way anywhere, then it doesn't matter where you wander off. But if you're headed someplace, if you're trying to embrace wisdom that leads to life, fullness of joy and belonging for you, and benefit and prosperity for the people around you, well, then there are wrong turns. And it doesn't help. I'm not suggesting that people beat themselves up or develop incredible guilt over wrong choices, but simply acknowledge a wrong step is a wrong step. Once we acknowledge that, then we can take the steps to correct it. We can choose, and the choices we make really matter. What are you listening to? What are you choosing to listen to? You know, a week ago, or maybe 2 weeks now, Abram introduced us to Harold, the ficus tree. Here he is. Whoops, there he is. Harold's eager to jump out of his pajamas. There he is. That's a big tree. The tree of life. We put it up here just to make a visual. Wisdom, she is a tree of life to those who embrace her. She leads to prosperity. Trees, I think, are pretty happy being trees, but they're a benefit to the ones around them as well. Are we choosing things that lead us in that path? We were joking, Abram and I, the other day about, well, what do we do with this ficus tree now that we have it? And we thought about maybe carrying it around campus and taking photos with other people that all want to claim, I'm with Harold. I'm on this path of pursuing wisdom. together. Maybe we'll show up in your dorm with Harold and ask, are you on this path, seeking wisdom? You know. For wisdom isn't what you know, it's what you love. And what you love shapes what you listen to. Let me give you an example. Let me tell you a little story about both how simple this is, but also how tricky it can be, or how easily we can be dissuaded. Think again back to Proverbs 8, those two voices personified as two different women, wisdom and folly, each at the highest point, each were their most predominant place they can be to get our attention, calling out, hey, come this way, I'll make you promises and show you hospitality. But such different results. You know, about, this was probably 11 or, well, it must be more than that, about 13 years ago, when my kids were much younger, we called up some friends who have a cabin in Maine and said, hey, we're looking for a getaway. Can we rent your cabin for a weekend in Maine to take the kids? And so it was about this time of year. It was in October. The leaves had been fallen. It was cold. But we had 3 days. They said, sure, use the place. In fact, we'll give it to you for free. Just go up there where no one's in it this weekend. Go on up and enjoy it. Here's the keys. We went up to Charlie and Kristen's cabin. And Charlie gave me some instructions about turning water on and off and stuff like that. And we spent about 3 days that were just gorgeous. We got up early in the morning and took canoe paddles across the misty lake. We hiked around in the woods. Josh and I, he was just a little guy, went swimming. The air temperature was about 40 degrees and the water was like 50. Do you remember this? Yeah, it still affects your voice a little bit today. And not really. It doesn't. It was cold. It was really cold. But then it came time to leave on Sunday afternoon, and I had this good idea. I think this was wisdom speaking to me. I said, why don't you just take a look around the property to see how it is before you leave, because who knows when Charlie's going to get here again. Good idea. So I walk around the property, and I noticed something that I don't know if it had happened overnight or something, or it had already been, I don't know what, but there was a tree from the neighbor's property that had fallen over and was resting on the roof of Charlie's cabin. Oh, here, I got a picture. There we go, something like this. It's resting on the roof of Charlie's cabin. And so I come back in, and here's another prodding of wisdom. Well, you better give Charlie a call before you leave here to see what he wants you to do about this. So I call up Charlie and say, hey, Charlie, listen, we're about to leave, but there's a tree from the neighbor's yard resting over on yours. It's just resting on, what should we do? He said, just let the neighbor know and leave it as it is. I'll take care of it when I come up in a few weeks. I say, okay, good enough, I'll do that. So I trudge over to the neighbor's house and knock on the neighbor's door and say, hey, I'm staying over at Charlie's, and notice that a tree from your house is crashed into his cabin. And the neighbor says, yeah, I wondered when you'd come over. And then almost like out of his back pocket, he pulls out a chainsaw, and he is ready to go. It was just like that. He's like, wow, here we go. And I think it was a Sunday afternoon. The ball game was playing in his thing, and I think he'd been relaxing with some beverages. But he says, here we go, we're going to do, and so here's wisdom says to me this. Charlie said, just leave it, I'll take care of it when we come up later. Right? But another voice says this, well, this guy really wants to go. He's ready to go. He's got a chainsaw, and then also this little voice, like Lady Folly, says, yeah, but wouldn't it be neat to kind of take care of Charlie's problem? So, I mean, he gave us the cabin for free. Wouldn't it be nice to just take care of it and to get back home and say, oh, remember that tree that was, yeah, I would take care of it. It's fine. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. Okay. But then wisdom says again, yeah, but didn't Charlie say, just leave it? So I'm standing in the doorway going like this, maybe. And the guy's already out the door, across the yard, and he's got a ladder, and he's climbing up to the roof of Charlie's house. And I'm like coming after him, still in this internal debate. Like, well, we can kind of, and he gets the chainsaw going and cuts off the top half of the tree that's up there on the roof. And it was big itself. This was this huge thing. And he just kind of starts rolling it over the side of the roof. And I'm thinking, okay, he's just going to drop that. Like, what is below there? I don't know. My kids might be below there. I don't know. He's just going to throw it off. And again, I'm hearing, Charlie said, just wait till he gets up there. Yeah, but it would be kind of cool, right? Take care of the problem. So he cuts off, we throw the thing down, and now there's just about 6 inches sticking over the roof, and then about 40 feet of trunk down to the yard. And we go down the ladder, and we're standing in the yard, and he starts his chainsaw again. And it didn't break at the ground. It broke about 4 feet up. So there's like 4 feet of stump here, and then the trunk. Let me give you the picture here. So it's resting out about 40 feet up on the second floor of Charlie's cabin. And right below where the tree is a big picture window. And my 18-month-old son is standing in his zip-up footy pajamas on the back of the couch with his hands against the window looking out. And he's got a great view. I mean, there's chainsaws and noise and trees happening. He's got a great view. And again, wisdom says, Greg, Charlie said just leave it, like something, And I'm starting to think, he's going to just cut this thing. Like, we need to tie this off. We need to control the fall somehow. We need to, but he's going. And still there's just that resistance I have to stopping the neighbor with the chainsaw. And also that little notion that, wouldn't it be kind of nice to have it all taken care of? Well, he cuts the trunk off of the stump, and of course it drops about 4 feet, which releases the catch on the roof and falls right into that picture window, crashes in, like that. Eli is standing there, 18 with his little zippy pajamas, just covered like a snow shower of splinters of glass everywhere. Just, Laura was in the kitchen of the cabin thinking what she often does in our domestic life. Oh my gosh, what has Greg done now? Well, needless to say, we, spent the next couple hours vacuuming Eli to get all the glass off, and then go into the hardware store to buy some material so I could patch up the window. And of course, what is wisdom saying to me now? Yeah. And this time it wasn't wisdom. Actually, it was just Charlie's voice echoing over that phone line. Hey, Greg, just leave it. I'll take care of it when I get up there again. I tell you that story because it's a great example of failure on my part. Failure to listen to wisdom prodding. And it had dramatic results, memorable results. But those moments we come to all the time. We cross those bridges all the time. If we have quiet enough to listen, if our hearts are attuned to love wisdom, we'll hear its voice speaking. So my question is this: what do you listen to? What do you hear when you're alone? You have a quiet moment alone. How many of you often have quiet moments alone? Oh, 3 of you. How many of you, it's really hard to come by quiet moments alone? Yeah, about 6. Yeah. It can be hard to listen. A guy named Gary Moon, who's the director of the Dallas Willard Center for Spiritual Formation out in California, he uses this image of 2 transmitter towers that each send out their signals. They're always saying things to us. One station broadcasts self and sin. The other broadcasts God, this whispering voice of wisdom. How can you tell the difference? Well, here's some of the ways he talks about. That one is forceful and loud. The other is invited, and it's quiet. One looks for external solutions to our problems, and the other finds internal solutions. One is broadly condemning. You're no good, you'll never be any good, you always do poorly at this. The other is specifically convicting. That was a mistake. Better correct that and get back on path. One stirs up contention, negative thoughts about those around you. The other fosters reconciliation between folks. One despises others. The other moves in compassion. One breeds helplessness while the other hope. One whispers worry or anger, discouragement, and the other love, peace, and joy. One erodes faith, and the other builds faith. What do you hear when you take a moment to be quiet and listen? We're going to do that right now. We're going to take a moment to be just completely silent, and I want to ask you, what do you hear? Pay attention. Let's start. What do you hear? That was less than a minute. Did you recognize either of these voices? You may not have really heard either. You might have just been plain distracted by other things to do, what's going on around you, what's happening right now, a joke you just told somebody. What do we listen to? Can we learn to listen and hear? If we lack wisdom, we can ask for it. But if we ask for it, we must listen to receive it. So what do you listen to? You know, out in the lobby right now is some artwork. Some of you are more visually oriented than orally oriented. I tend to be visually oriented. Les Bartlett is a local artist and a photographer. He's got a setup there right now in the narthex of 7 sayings, the I am sayings of Christ. And Leslie has made a vocation out of helping others see as he's beginning to see, to behold things. Tomorrow night at 4:30, he's going to be here, or tomorrow afternoon, 4:30, in the narthex, talking about a lesson in beholding. A lot of his work is from locally here at quarries, granite walls, what he sees, encountering God and what he sees, because he's got the quiet and peace of mind to listen and receive. I invite you to come listen to Leslie. It's pretty interesting to hear, to find the meaning in these paintings that he's shared with us, or photos that he's shared with us. But my challenge for you is this. You know, wisdom isn't what you know, it's what you love. And what you love will shape what you listen to. So what are you listening to? You know? Are you seeking wisdom with love? And what do you hear? As you go from this place, we're going to close with a hymn in just a moment. At the close of the hymn, you're free to leave. But I want to challenge you in this way. Listen to your listening. Be attentive to your attention. What is it that has your heart and grabs your attention? Can you discern the voice of wisdom as she calls out and stay away from the callings of folly? I'm sure you can. Let's turn now to hymn number 405, My Faith Has Found a Resting Place.